In this video, we will discuss how to appeal an eviction or money judgment in Allegheny County, Pennsylvania. How can a tenant appeal a judgment of the district court? If a tenant disagrees with the court's decision and would like another court to take a look at their case, they can file an appeal to the Court of Common Pleas. In Pennsylvania, the Court of Common Pleas is the court system above the magisterial district courts and handles appeals from the courts below. Is there a deadline for filing an appeal? There are different deadlines for filing appeals depending on what was decided. If the landlord was granted possession, the tenant must appeal this decision within 10 calendar days from the date of the judgment. If the tenant does not appeal within 10 days, the landlord may request an order for possession and evict 10 days after the service of the order on the tenant. If the tenant does not want to file an appeal of the possession judgment, but only the money judgment, he has 30 days from the date of the district court's judgment to file an appeal. The landlord also has 10 days to appeal the possession judgment and 30 days to appeal only the money judgment. If no appeals are filed within 30 days, the judgment is final. Can a tenant appeal an eviction and remain in the property? If a tenant wants to stay in the property while their appeal is being processed, the tenant must file an appeal within 10 calendar days of the district court judgment. And they must also establish a supersedious or escrow account at the Department of Court Records. If rent is listed as owed in the judgment, the low-income tenant must pay 1/3 of a month's rent when they file the appeal. Then, 20 days later, the tenant will pay the other 2/3, and 10 days after, they will pay a full month's rent and continue to pay every 30 days. If no rent is listed as owing in the judgment, they will deposit a full month's rent 30 days after the appeal. The tenant must bring cash or money order, which will be placed in escrow account until the appeal has been decided on. At the time of filing the appeal, if the tenant has already paid rent for the month in which they are appealing, they must indicate this on an affidavit, a document that states they are telling the truth, and provide a receipt. If they don't have a receipt, the affidavit should be sufficient. The court will give the tenant a stamped copy of the appeal and a rent payment schedule. The rent payments to the escrow account will allow the tenant to stay in the property. The Department of Court Records will serve the landlord with a copy of the appeal, and the landlord must then file a complaint within 20 days of service. When the tenant receives the landlord's complaint, it will have the date of the new hearing stamped on the front. The tenant must file a response within 20 days. The easiest way to do that is to complete and file the intention to appear form, which should be attached to the front of the complaint. The tenant should list his defenses and also list a counterclaim if he is asking for any money himself. The tenant should be sure to mark the date of the arbitration hearing on his calendar and attend the hearing. Can a tenant appeal a money judgment and retain their personal property? If the landlord gets a final judgment at the district court or in common pleas court, he can move to collect the money by levying on the tenant's personal property. Either a constable, if it is a district court judgment, or the sheriff, if it is a judgment in common pleas court, will make a list of the tenant's property and schedule a sale. If the tenant wants to stop the sale of their property, they can file an appeal or a claim for exemption at the magisterial district court office or the Department of Court Records, depending on the court in which the judgment was obtained. The tenant is permitted to keep up to $300 of property. Alternatively, they can file for bankruptcy. Doing this will suspend any proceedings against the tenant. In collecting their money, a landlord can ask the court to have a tenant's wages attached to pay the judgment. However, the amount taken from the tenant's paycheck cannot be more than 10% of their gross adjusted income or cause them to fall below poverty. If you live in Allegheny, Beaver, Butler, or Lawrence County in Pennsylvania, you can request free legal services at Neighborhood Legal Services by calling 1-866-761-6572 or by applying online at www.nlsa.us. To find the Civil Legal Aid Program in your area, please visit www.palawhelp.org in Pennsylvania or www.lsc.gov and click on the Find Legal Aid tab.